Good morning, folks. I want to thank you for joining me on a special Friday edition of Coffee with Texas Paul. We we've been asked by you to add to our content, so we're going to do it. We're going to do it. And this morning we had a story break. ProPublica has done an amazing job of looking at corruption in the Supreme Court, and we've just had another story break with Clarence Thomas. And I just felt it was important enough to say, okay, you know what? We're going to add another Friday show. Let's do it today. Let's do it on this. It may not be the traditional hour long, it may be a little shorter, but I just felt this was important enough to talk about that we would get together and do it this morning. So fill your cups, grab your pen and paper for the round table at the end, and let's do this. Morning, folks. ProPublica has been following the Harlan Crow, Clarence Thomas, payola scandal is all you can really call it. For better part of a couple of years now, they've been doing outstanding journalism on the trips and travel and just all the gifts and grift that has been going on with Clarence Thomas. And this morning we had a big one break that really just crosses the line. And let me give you the headline here. And I highly recommend that after the show that you folks go ahead and go read the article from ProPublica. It's really good. It's all over social media. I've linked it on Threads. And I bet you Ken Burns, the guy standing in the middle, you've got David Koch here, you've got Clarence Thomas, of course, and then they're sandwiching Ken Burns, the documentary director, in the middle. The Koch brothers have always funded David Burns documentaries, so yeah, I'm sure he's not too happy to be drugged into the middle of this. But hey, you take the money, you're involved. What we've got that's different about this one is you had Clarence Thomas flying out to Palm Springs to attend a fundraiser with Kochs, with their Stand Together organization. And what Stand Together is I keep telling you about the billionaire frat boys that are backing the Republican Party and how we Democrats just don't have that. We don't. We don't have a group like Stand Together. Stand Together is literally a fraternity for billionaires to get together and gather money, gather donations, and then push them out through smaller organizations to get what they want, to buy people. Let's be honest about it. Let's be frank about it. They buy people. And they've been having spectacular results, folks. I mean, just spectacular results. The Koch brothers, you know, David Koch is now dead, but Charles Koch is still at work. Had a ruling that they've been chasing forever before the Supreme Court, stripping the EPA of their ability to regulate carbon emissions. And what that means is that instead of the EPA doing its job and their scientists that understand global warming and what we need to do to clean up our atmosphere, those, what regulations need to be put in place so that we can have clean energy. This ruling effectively kicks that back to Congress. And we all know how corrupt Congress is. But this really isn't the beginning of it, folks. This isn't the beginning of it. Let me share with you here. This is Cibolo Creek Ranch. I mean, it's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful place. It's out in the Big Bend here in Texas. I hunt out here. To be honest with you, I hunt out here. Not at Cibolo Creek Ranch, but in this area, I used to do quite a bit of quail hunting out there. As a young man, there would just be just rivers of quail. Um, this is a ranch that's owned by JB Poindexter, and it's just beautiful. I mean, take a look at this, folks. I mean, it's beautiful. It's about $400 a night if you wanted to rent one of the rooms, but they've got an elite section that you can't get into. And they were having a little shindig back in 2016 for their elites. I mean, this is just really beautiful territory. You see this valley here when you hunt out in the Big Bend. Used to fire ants have pretty much decimated the quail populations, and they're much smaller cubbies now. But you would be walking out in these hills, and there would literally be rivers. There would just look like a black river compared to the background. Even quail are gray with black highlights, but there would be so many of them that it would literally look just like a flowing river of birds. It's just a breathtaking area. And, people ask me, "Hey, Paul, why do you stay in Texas, man? Why do you stay in Texas?" Texas is one of the most beautiful places on earth. And Cibolo Creek Ranch, it's 30,000 acres. It's hosted people, like, you know, uh, Tommy Lee Jones, um, Jerry Hall, and Mitch Jagger, the lead singer of the Rolling Stones. It's a fairly elite place to go. That's what a sunset looks like. This is one of my favorite pictures in the thumbnails here of Cibolo Creek Ranch. This is what a sunset looks like every day in the Big Bend. Every day, just these pink and purple and blue, beautiful sunsets that are just gorgeous. Tommy Lee Jones loves this place so much, and you see it's well appointed. It's a nice place. Tommy Lee Jones loves this place so much he shot a movie out here, directed a movie out here. But I mean, it's a nice place to visit. And what's so special about it is this is where Antonin Scalia died. He didn't show up for breakfast. They were having one of their big elite private soirees, as one is wont to do. Um, one of these groups, like you had, this latest story with Clarence Thomas flying out to Palm Springs. These are the places they go to, folks. Well, Antonin Scalia was out there in one of these meetings where they fly in the billionaires and the billionaires fly in folks like Scalia who, and parade them around and show that we own a Supreme Court justice. Each their own, David. Each their own. I happen to love quail. It's delicious, by the way. It's delicious. You quails are ground birds, like chicken. They have white breasts, white meat breasts, and you wrap them in bacon and with a jalapeno. Uh, Put them on your smoker, and then add a little barbecue sauce to it. Um, Thank you, Maria Madsen. Maria Madsen says, "Yes, guns and hunting are blue too." Yeah, it, I love to hunt. I do. That's a gun cabinet behind me. Um, I've got a few very nice shotguns in there. Um, yeah, quail is delicious if you ever get a chance. It's not like it used to be. The fire ants have really decimated the populations because, like I say, quail are ground birds like chickens. Um, and the fire ants invade the nests, and it the population's really fallen. But the cubbies of quail still range from anywhere from 10 to 20 to 30 birds, and it's really exciting when you're out walking, uh, and you spook a cubby of quail, and all of a sudden 30 birds fly up, and you try to maintain your composure and get a few shots out. But yeah, each to their own. I understand if you don't like hunting. I do. But I want to get back to what we were talking about. You have this beautiful 30,000-acre private ranch. It's owned by a guy by the name of JB Poindexter. Um, he got his start with Solomon Brothers, and he just, moved into private equity, then started a company. He builds boxes for trucks. That's what he does. He's a billionaire. And these are the kind of guys that I was playing. You may remember a previous show where I was talking about Sureline. There's nothing you can do. Everybody, all the packaging and the handling, the billionaire frat boy donor from Sureline, you can't boycott him because everything you buy, the packaging, the handling, the warehousing, that's what he sells. He doesn't sell to you. You can't decide to not buy his product because the companies that you have to buy from to feed your family and whatnot all buy from him. Well, same thing with JB Poindexter. You can be mad as hell that he was hosting one of these events where billionaires were parading Antonin Scalia around like a cheap whore, but there's nothing much you can do about it because the box on the truck that brings your goods is made by JB Poindexter. I mean, what are you going to do? And there are dozens and dozens and dozens of these guys out there, people you've never heard of. And that's kind of what I wanted to do today. Not just talk about, yes, this has gone next level with Clarence Thomas. He's now attending fundraising events for people who have cases before his court. He's helping them raise money. He's not just taking trips. He that's new. That is so beyond the pale of ethics that there are no ethics involved there. I mean, it's just that nobody does that. If a federal judge did that, they would immediately be brought up for disciplinary action. Not just a disciplinary hearing, there would be disciplinary action taken against that judge. They would be forced to resign. And it's been going on forever. Nobody asked when Scalia died. The corporate press just really didn't look at it. What was he doing there? Oh, he was on vacation. Who paid for it? Who paid for the private jet that flew him there? We still don't know that. JB Poindexter won't tell us. All JB Poindexter told us is, I didn't charge Scalia. Duh. You gave him a free stay at your resort. That doesn't make it better, JB. And then JB won't tell us who provided the private jet, the Gulfstream that flew him there. So we don't know. And that's part of what I want to talk about today is what we're finding out is horrific. We're finding gifts that are totaling up into the, tens of millions of dollars for these people over the last few decades. And everybody involved is saying that count is low. We're not finding it all. And Clarence Thomas came out and gave a speech where he raged about his pay and that nobody would ever do this job for that pay. Bullshit. That's top 1% pay. But it's not good enough for him. He's living like a billionaire. He's traveling around like a billionaire. And before we get back to Clarence Thomas, I just want to share with you that he's not the only one. You people heard me rail and just rail about Paul Singer and the Manhattan Institute. Well, here's Paul Singer on the right with Samuel Alito in the middle. You can't recognize him when he's got a cap on covering his bald head. And they're at an Alaskan fishing resort. That fishing resort that they're at charges $1,000 a night. And they went for over a week. And he didn't list it. I guess he thought, that kind of largesse just wasn't worth putting in the disclosures. But that's not even the biggest part of it. If you tried to book a jet, a private jet to fly you to Alaska, even a smaller jet like a Gulfstream, you'd be talking about 100 grand each way. And he just didn't think it was relevant to mention. In fact, he tried to downplay it, saying, "Oh, no, 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 no. See, I didn't do that. That they just had an open seat. They just had it. I didn't ask for this. They just had an open seat and said, 'Hey, you want to go fishing?' I thought, sure, yeah, I'll go fishing." To the tune of $1,000 a night in a resort in Alaska. You know how much it costs to build a resort in Alaska? It ain't cheap, my friend. It ain't cheap. This isn't just Clarence Thomas, folks. Thanks, been a local. A lot of people were talking about they'd like to see the show a little bit more regularly, and I didn't want to do a daily show because I don't want you to get tired of me. So we decided, hey, let's take a look at adding a Friday show. Next Friday, I will be traveling, and there won't be a Friday show next Friday. I apologize for that, folks. But this story I thought was important enough to go ahead and get it going, get our Friday show going. But just to take a look at what we're talking about. I don't know if you folks, I have actually vacationed here, not at Bohemian Grove, but in the same area. This is the Muir Woods. It's where the redwoods are. The showing you pictures of this is irrelevant. Anybody that's been there, we vacationed in this area. It is beautiful. The Sonoma Valley and the Muir Woods. We went over to Calaveras Big Trees. The Russian River that the Bohemian Grove is on is incredible. It is just one of the most beautiful places on earth. One more quick view of the redwoods, and then we'll stop that nonsense. But I just want you to have an idea of what we're talking about. You know, the Bohemian Grove is a private members only men's club, and it's in the northern part of the Muir Woods, east of Santa Rosa, north of San Francisco. And like I said, I've been all through the Sonoma Valley. I have to tell you, folks, it was one of the most beautiful vacations I've ever been on in my life. Went through the little town of Glen Ellen, it's really kinda surreal when you're driving down the road and you're seeing the wineries for all the wines, you every time you walk down the aisle down at the wine mile aisle down at Walmart, you're seeing, you see the different wine brands, this, that, and the other, and then you realize when you're driving, "Oh, wow, this is really a place." This isn't just somebody's brand, I mean, this is really a winery right here, on the Russian River. Korbel, the Korbel commercials will start coming out in a few weeks, when Christmas starts to break, you'll start seeing the Korbel champagne commercials. One of the most beautiful winery tours I've ever been on. It is just gorgeous. It was amazing, and I can't stress to you just how beautiful this place is, and pictures don't do it. It's surreal. I mean, I for out in Calaveras, big trees, just an idea, these redwoods, these sequoias, nothing kills them. Bugs can't eat them enough to kill them. Fire won't kill them because they've got bark on them so thick that they're actually insulated from the fire. They just grow so large that at some point they can't hold their own weight anymore, and they will fall over. And when they fall over, they expose this root ball, and it was actually, it's going to sound weird, one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. The rain washes the mud off of them, and then you just have this 30-foot tall thing that's just gnarly roots sticking out, and I have pictures sometime I'll share with you. Um, they're crazy. They're crazy beautiful. It's surreal. When you first get there, it's a little unsettling. You feel like you're gonna see a dinosaur walk out at some point. It's just so unreal. Um, but yeah, I've gone on enough about that. I apologize, but I just wanted you to have an idea that, when Harlan Crow sends his G20 to Clarence Thomas, makes it available to him at the airport and then flies him to California. I mean, I want you to think about that. I mean, have you ever had anybody take you on a trip like that? I mean, really? Have you? Much less book you a private jet, fly you out to Bohemian Grove, a very exclusive men's only club. They have their own little resort area, camping resort area. You know, the press keeps trying to sneak in there. Hell, even that nutball Alex Jones snuck in there one time and filmed one of the ceremonies that they have for that group. And here they are just parading Clarence Thomas around like a dog on a leash. This is my property. I own the Supreme Court justice. And I got to tell you, Clarence Thomas keeps trying to defend himself. Say, well, I wasn't included in any of the business conversations. Well, like at Bohemian Grove, there is no business. There's a rule at Bohemian Grove. You cannot conduct business at the Grove. You can't. So these guys are just chumming it up, pissing in the woods together, seeing, performances put on, comedy shows, lavish meals are served out there, and here comes old Harlan Crow with Clarence Thomas on his leash. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, look what I brought. And he's supposed to represent us. He's supposed to represent us in our interests. But these guys just keep on keeping on selling themselves. And I want to expand this for you folks because the Corporate media is just not going to do it. They're just not going to do it. They're not going to tell you about this because a lot of the guys that are involved in this are paying them billions of dollars in ad money every election. Their businesses buy ads. So they're not going to talk to you about these people. Well, they don't pay me a damn dime, so I'm going to tell you about them. We're going to talk about them. Because Harlan Crow isn't the only guy that's pimping Clarence Thomas or other Supreme Court justices. He's just not. Let me introduce you to another guy. Another guy that you never heard of. Was a billionaire. He's a dead man now. His son is living large on his anybody recognize this guy? Anybody know who he is? No. This is Wayne Huizenga. H. Wayne Huizenga. He's another billionaire. He made his first money off a company I'm sure you've heard of, Blockbuster Video. He sold it before it died. Not a stupid guy. Then he opened up another little company you've heard of called Waste Management. Yeah, he's a trash billionaire. He is. Everybody has to pay him. And if you live in a region that's serviced by Waste Management, you got no choice. You got to pay that guy every month. And yeah, he was another one. Flying Clarence Thomas around to resorts. He was another one. Here's a picture of old Huizenga's jet. Another thing about H. Wayne Huizenga is he owned the Miami Dolphins. And you know, old Clarence Thomas, he likes football. He's been pictured at several sporting events, several college football games, and luxury boxes. You know, just basically thumbing his nose at us while he sits in his luxury boxes. If you've never been in a luxury box, I have. I've got a family member who is just Richard and Dog's Not. He has just got more money than Jesus. And he invited me to come out one day to Memphis, and we watched a Tennessee Titans game in a luxury box that his company that he is an executive at was an executive at. He's moved companies now. And I got to tell you, it's an experience, man. They bring cheerleaders by. There's a full buffet in the back, open bar, great seats. You just walk outside the box, and right below the box, there's open seats for you to sit and watch the game. You know, Clarence Thomas gets this all the time. I mean, they know of at least a dozen trips like this he's taken. You know, I had to have a family member, you know, bring me in on on a game they didn't fill the box, you know, to experience this once in my life, and it's the only time in my life I'll ever experience it. But this is old Wayne Huizenga's jet. He would send that up to DC to pick up Clarence Thomas. And you'll notice that's not a Gulfstream. No, sir. That's a 737. It's got a private chef on it. And in another court case that went before Clarence Thomas, they approved a challenge to a tax law that now allows Huizenga to write that jet off. Yeah. Thomas, Peter Kimball says Thomas even got a Super Bowl ring from Dallas owner Jerry Jones. Yeah. There's a lot of these perks that he's been getting. You know, and I just want you to be able to see that jet. That's a real 737 jet that Huizenga owned. You know, he's the owner of the Miami Dolphins. He would send the jet up to Clarence Thomas, pick him up in D.C. with a private chef on it. Do you know how much that trip costs from D.C. to Miami each way? Wild guesses, just wild guesses. Throw your wild guesses out there in there. You know, it's a shorter trip than to Alaska. How much do you think it cost? $130,000 each way. Each way. And Thomas never reported any of it. Nope. Not important enough. I mean, wouldn't that be nice if somebody just liked you enough just to send a 737 to pick you up, to fly you down to their digs down in Fort Lauderdale? So while you're down in Fort Lauderdale, living it up in any way that, of course, they're not telling us everything he did down there, but we do know, he was hosted by Huizenga, and this is Huizenga's pad down in Fort Lauderdale. I'm sorry for folks watching this on their phones. This is big as I can get these pictures, and I'm just going to click through a few of these. This is Huizenga's place where he used to host Clarence Thomas. It's in the canal there. You notice that Huizenga could bring his super yacht up and park it at his residence. He had a dock big enough that he didn't have to drive through traffic with us filthy trash when he came back on his super yacht cruises. That I don't know, was Thomas taking yacht cruises with him? I don't know. He was taking them with Harlan Crow, but Huizenga wouldn't ever tell us. And Huizenga's kid, he's tight-lipped about it. But this is a pretty nice little place, huh? I mean, you'd have thought that Clarence Thomas might have, just super yacht motoring by, right? I mean, everybody gets that, right? I mean, you folks, I mean, you got people that give you vacations like this, don't you? Where they just fly you down on a 737 down to Fort Lauderdale and treat you, put you up in their pad that's on Billionaires Row in Fort Lauderdale. I mean, you've made it when your front door is inside. When your front door is inside, you made it. But I just want you to take a look at this. I mean, take a look at that right there. Just sitting back. Imagine old Clarence Thomas kicking back, drinking his wine, having a good old time. Never occurred to him once. Because old Clarence Thomas told us, I mean, the job ain't worth doing for his paycheck. He deserves this. He deserves this. Thank you, Wildflower. I don't like her either. Wildflower says with his hog wife. And who else they set him up with, we don't know. We don't know how far this scandal's going to go. We just found out that he was fundraising for the Koch brothers who had a case before him. Hookers, I don't know. Were there hookers? But of course, he wasn't the only one. We've talked about this before. This was the first one that broke it all. I want you to see these people. That's Harlan Crow, another Texas billionaire in the frat club. The reason so many of these people are Texas billionaires is because Republicans have turned my state into a joke tax dodge. If you build your house in Texas, you don't pay state income taxes. We have sales taxes and property taxes, and these guys get huge exemptions, because they homestead their billionaire palaces, and they don't pay a fraction of the taxes that they would pay anywhere else. The Nazi collector, that's right, the Nazi memorabilia collector, Harlan Crow. And what did Harlan Crow do? I mean, we know for a fact that he motored old. I want you to think about the cost of this flight, because they didn't. It takes a while to move one of these boats. This is old Harlan Crow's super yacht, the Michaela Rose. That picture doesn't do it justice. It's monstrously huge. It is monstrously huge, and kudos again to ProPublica for showing us this. I've got a close up of it. Let me bring the close up so you can get a better idea how just how damn big this yacht is. There you go. There's a close up of it. So, yeah, they motored this boat to Asia, then grabbed old Clarence Thomas in DC. We've talked about the costs of these flights. Put him on a private jet, him and his entire family on a private jet, flew them out to Asia, and then drove them around to all the nicest places in Southeast Asia, Bali, just all the ultra wealthy hidden little gems that you and I would never be able to visit. Motored them around on that super yacht with a private chef. And Lisa McBaron says the only way to appeal SCOTUS rulings is by/through Congress and making new opposing laws. Exactly. But we know, they're not just buying Supreme Court justices. They aren't. They're buying politicians. That's what Clarence Thomas was doing at this Koch Brothers event. And this is why it's so important what ProPublica is breaking today. Is that these groups that they were fundraising for, and they were taking Clarence Thomas, and these groups have tiers. You go to when you went to Palm Springs for this event, and you donated just a mere $100,000, which was the minimum to get you into this event. Well, you know, you weren't allowed with the elites. I mean, they'd have a big dinner together, but then, we can't have the great unwashed that would only donate $100,000, with us. And where was Clarence Thomas? He was with the elites, the big time donors, the ones that have given this group $200 million to just buy politicians. I mean, you didn't think Republicans were acting like complete lunatics for no reason. Oh, no. They're getting this sweet, sweet money that Clarence Thomas is helping them fundraise from these billionaires, which is just pocket change for these guys. They've got nothing else to do with it. They've got so much money, they don't know where to spend it or what to do. I mean, they've got to wake up in the morning and invent new places to spend their money. So now they're all getting into social frickin' engineering and buying our government. And it's not just Harlan Crow, it's not just Wazinga. And here's David Sokol. David Sokol used to run Berkshire Hathaway. And quite frankly, we don't know everything that David Sokol gave Clarence Thomas and other Supreme Court justices because he won't tell us. We just know through discussions, and the digging that ProPublica has done, that he did send them on trips and pay for travel. And when asked about it and presented with the evidence from ProPublica, he said, "Yeah, I've known the Clarences for decades. Of course, we travel together." Said, I've known Clarence Thomas for 21 years. Of course we traveled together. Of course we've hosted them in their lavish mansion and their resorts in rooms that you would never be able to dream to afford. And Sokol was so arrogant about it when they asked him, "Well, did you pay, fly him out on a private jet, this, that, and the other?" He got mad. "Of course I did. For security reasons, do you think a Supreme Court justice should just fly on a public airline? Are you crazy?" That's where these people are. That's where they are. They're so freaking nuts. This is normal to them. They've got so much money sitting around. Why not just buy a Supreme Court justice? Folks, people have always went when you said this, but we used to have a 90% tax bracket in this country. Before Reagan came along, it was at 70%. Why? Because idle billions is the devil's play toy. And these people have now made so much money that this is what they do for fun. They buy up a place like the Cibolo Creek Ranch, a 30,000 acre ranch out in the Permian Basin, build an ultra fabulous resort, and bring out politicians and Supreme Court justices and some celebrities for them to rub shoulders with and have your parties. And in turn, these people take your phone calls every time something they want done by our government for them, like saying, oh, the EPA can't enforce its own regulations anymore. Why not, right? I mean, what else are you going to do with the money? Buy a car? I mean, they've got everything they could ever want. So yeah, why not send your Boeing 737? I mean, think about that the next time you fly, how many people they cram into that plane. And think about it just for you. Private cabins, so leather sofas, private chef cooking for you in case it's a long flight. You're going to want some snacks. And this is what they're doing with Supreme Court justices. And Clarence Thomas is giving rage speeches that this is what he deserves because he does a job that he doesn't think is worth the money. Just by a show of hands, how many of you think you live a pretty decent life, but you don't make anywhere near $275,000 a year? I mean, really, just by a show of hands, how many of y'all make $275,000 a year, plus all the benefits that come with being a Supreme Court justice? Things like you get to have somebody ghostwrite a book for you, and all these organizations go out and buy your books by the cases to give you extra money. That's not illegal. Should be. Should be illegal as hell. And being pissed off that people would think that you would just do the job for that. I mean, that's where these folks are. They think they deserve the billionaire lifestyle for being a Supreme Court justice. And the last guy I want to introduce you to, and This one, we don't have any details at all. He wasn't like David Sokol that came out and pissed off because we were questioning him. This is Tony Novelli. His full name's Paul Novelli, but he goes by Tony. Big Tony. Big Tony Novelli. He's an energy billionaire up in St. Louis. He owns a company you never heard of, Future Fuel Corp. I told you, they've got these frat boys, these billionaire frat boy organizations. People you never heard of, will never see, companies you've never heard of. Oh, Tony Novelli just when ProPublica called him and said, "Hey, folks, um, we know that you're sending Supreme Court justices, namely Clarence Thomas, on trips. We know you're traveling with him. We just haven't gotten the details of it yet. Would you like to just come out and share with us what's been going on? Because eventually we're going to find it through travel records." And God bless ProPublica, because what they've been doing is they have been going through all the public records via FOIA requests for where these people's jets fly to, figuring out which ones are business, which ones are trips, doing the hard work. God bless ProPublica for doing this work. And then they go back and they track the manifests to see who was on the flights, and then they know. And then they go back and they tell the people, okay, we know you took this flight. Uh, we've been able to track you to this resort. We know Clarence Thomas was on the flight. Would you like to tell us that you took Clarence Thomas on this trip? And then the billionaires will finally say, okay, you got me. I took him on that trip. Okay, what other trips have you taken him on? Not telling you. That's why everybody that's investigating this is telling you, they're screaming as loud as you can hear. We haven't hit the tip of the iceberg yet. The tip of the iceberg is still way off in the distance. And the 90% that's below the surface, we haven't even begun to scratch yet. And how disgusted are you by what you've already heard? So look, I know I've gone on long about this, but to me, it's just an incredibly important topic. It is. It's incredibly important. These people are just openly buying our government. And Republicans, and yeah, you have to call the right-wing Supreme Court justice Republican, because that's what they are. Hoot Johnson says, I'm pissed off. I'm glad you're pissed off, Hoot Johnson. I am glad. It's important. Salty Sylvester says, what can we do? Thank you for asking that question. That's where I was going. Just wrapping this up, and that's what I'm telling you. There's one thing to do. I don't give a damn how old Joe Biden is. I don't give a damn that he's only gotten 80% of his promises done, and the 20% that's left is something that you wanted to happen and hasn't happened yet. It doesn't matter. Mary P nails it on the head. One word: vote. Vote. The corporate media is already trying to revitalize the Republican base, even though the Republicans are openly destroying themselves in real time in front of us. You have Kevin McCarthy that we're going to have a government shutdown, folks. We are. We're going to have a government shutdown on October 1st. And the Republicans are just completely fractured, completely divided. Kevin McCarthy sent everyone home this weekend because everything was such a disaster. Yeah, let me see the hearts and skulls for the ride or die Democrats out there. Thank you, Barbara Vasquez. Let me be clear about this, completely clear about this, and as frank as I can be, Peter Campbell says the erosion of our democracy is a big effing deal, to quote Joe Biden. Thanks, Paul, for the discussion. You're welcome. You're welcome. I will talk about this anytime. Here are the things that we can do, and I'll just run through them quickly. One, I come from a generation where talking about money is vulgar, but money is politics. Those ads have to be paid for. They have billionaire frat clubs that not only travel these people around buying them, they pay for their campaigns. These guys don't have to do crap. They don't have to do anything. They just show up to a prepaid for deal. Democrats have to walk out and they have to shake hands. Hey, man, please give me some money. Hey, please give me some money. Hey, please give me some money. So if your country means anything to you, financial support. That is a huge one. Financial support. If you can't, I get it. I get it. Volunteer. There was a long time in my life that I was living paycheck to paycheck before I met Mrs. Texas Paul, who is 10 times smarter than I am and showed me how to manage my money. She's brilliant. Best thing I ever did was meeting that lady. So I get it. I've been there, paycheck to paycheck. I've been there. Volunteer. If you don't have time to volunteer, vote. Vote. I don't care if Joe Biden dies the week before the election and we have to weekend and burning his ass through the election. Vote. And vote Democrat at every level. We have an election coming up this November 2023, folks. There will be elections. You know, Democrats just steamrolled a special election. Republicans try to do this, special elections all the time, because we don't have people that show up for presidential elections. We really don't have people that show up in off-year elections, and nobody shows up for the special elections. If it ain't Tuesday in November, nobody on a presidential election, nobody shows up. That's changed. We Democrats just rolled a special election, a Trump plus 12 district. We just won by 13 points. Think about that. That's a 25-point swing, folks. The momentum, the wind is at our backs. All you got to do is show up and vote. All you got to do is show up and vote. And we end this. Voting is the one big, thank you, Linda Orndorff. Voting is the one big equalizer. Bonnie Beck says weekend at Joe. He ain't dead yet, man. He's still kicking. He's still kicking. Dark Brandon's still whipping their asses. So let me just wrap that part up and we can go to the roundtable. We've only got a few minutes left. Medusa says, don't expect others to handle it. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, we even have, my friend here from Norway, Asbjørn Knutson. He's from Norway. He's financially supporting me so I can get this message out. Citizens United has to die or you will lose your democracy. There is no other way to take power back. We need a free USA, vote blue. Our European allies, our friends from all over the globe see how important this is. They know. And the way we get rid of Citizens United is by dominating Congress. That means if you're in a red state, don't believe your vote doesn't matter. It does. We're flipping districts huge all over the country. Your vote matters. Get it out there, and we can end Citizens United. We can end Citizens United. CJB says, register now and vote blue. Absolutely. Don't wait till the last minute. You know the Republicans are going to try to engage in shenanigans. You know the Republicans are going to try to do the signature matching BS. Does anyone in here have the same signature for everything they sign? You know, that little, here in Texas, you've got that little rubber screen that you sign for your driver's license, and that's the one they always like to compare. That is nothing like the signature I put on legal documents where I've got a line this long and I can just swoop all my letters, and nobody has the same signature. And the Republicans constantly try to use signature matches to exclude people from voting. constantly. So, yes, your vote matters. Get your registration done early and check on it periodically. Let's get this done. Let's get it done. I just wanted to leave the taste in your mouth from this disgusting, Clarence Thomas raising money for people that, billionaires that travel them all over the world and have cases before the Supreme Court. I want that bitter taste in your mouth, folks. And I apologize that we ran too long. We've got Tony and Hal shows coming up. I know we've got our sparklers here and Tony fam here. So we're out of time. We're out of time. And I'm sorry we didn't have a roundtable. We'll do that on Sunday. I promise you. But folks, vote. Financially support Democratic candidates. Act Blue is wonderful. Act Blue is wonderful. Reach out to these candidates. I mean, folks, I scratch where I can to make these donations. I do. And as election time gets closer, one of the things I do is when I'm going through Sam's, there's a $20 bag of chocolate that I want to buy. I put it back on the shelf and I say a name, somebody who's going to get that money. I don't need that bag of chocolate. Do it, folks. Do it. I love you, folks. And we are done. We are out of time. Enjoy this view of Texas cities. I live in a beautiful state, and I'm glad you could join me. Y'all have a wonderful Friday and have a blessed weekend.